when we met, almost 7 months ago, when you were finishing up rehab at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center.
Crazy.
It was just amazing to meet you and your mom and your sister. And I met you towards the end of being there at the hospital. But, hearing your story for a long time, you were so inspiring, and I was so glad to get to meet you. And now we're here doing a Vancast.
Oh, that's very nice of you.
So, Kaitlyn McCaffery, welcome to Nick's Vancast. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to share your story, but I just wanted to say it's been amazing to see all of your progress, and I'm just so glad that you're here doing this. What have you been up to lately first?
So now I'm in outpatient rehab, so I'm still in rehab, but back in the same place as I met you originally, but outpatient-wise, not inpatient. So I'm doing that right now, but definitely made a lot of progress. As you can see, I got my feeding tube out. It was like, I see like videos and stuff, and I can see the difference, but it's not like, whoa, huge difference. I mean, in videos it is a little bit, but in my mind it's like, I make differences, but small ones. And so that was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, that made me feel like my hard work is paying off.
That's incredible. Yeah, you're making huge improvements, but for the listeners at home, would you mind giving us a backstory on kind of what we're talking about, if you will?
No, of course. So, basically, I got into a motor scooter accident in Bali, and because I went there to start a company, so I was there only for 2 months at that point, and I was trying to start a company, and I got into my motor scooter accident and hurt my head. So in my mind, I was just sleeping, but apparently I was in a coma, and like even when I was awake, I don't remember that part, the very beginning when I was in Stanford. And they were amazing. Like, they did all the cool things to help me, which is awesome. And you probably can't really tell, because you can't tell unless I'll have you look later, but unless you look really closely, you can't see a scar. But I had my whole left side redone, a surgery. And because I guess the way that they did my eyebrow was zigzaggy, so the guy was like, we need to fix that. So he fixed it, luckily, and I told him, I was like, well, if I woke up and didn't know who that was, I'd be like, who the is that? So I'm glad he did it. And I told him that I was really happy for that, because I saw him when I came home after Stanford, or after Valley Med, and so that made me really happy. So I was very, very thankful for that. So and then I don't remember that. And the first time I remember kind of being awake was when I was at rehab. So then I started to put things together. I was like, and then my sister was like, you've been unconscious for a amount of months. And I was like, I'm back. And she cracked up. It was funny.
Was that the first thing you said to her?
No, but the first thing I can say I really remember saying,
So let's go back to the beginning a little bit. Okay. Obviously, you've been through a tremendous journey. Yeah. And again, even for people who just heard that, it's crazy and amazing that you're here, and it's so cool. So you were in Bali, you're in Indonesia, and you said you were starting a company?
Well, because it was cheaper to live, and so me and my friend, who was my business partner, her and I decided to move there to create products. We were going to create stuff for traveling and do different products in that way. So that's why we're there, because we wanted to start it kind of. And we just had worked on it, both of us, different super yachts, but we both just worked on super yachts. And so we saved a good amount, and we're like, okay, we can go now.
What was the company that you were starting?
It was called Sunfera.
Okay.
Sunfera.
What were you going to sell, or what was the goal for your business?
It was to make very, very good for the earth-friendly products that were, so it was sustainable and good for traveling. So things you could use while you traveled.
So you had a huge passion for traveling too.
Oh yeah. That was the love of my life for 6+ years.
Wow.
That's all I wanted to do. That's all I cared about.
Did you live in other countries too, other than Bali?
Yeah, multiple countries. I lived in New Zealand. I lived in Puerto Rico. I did a job, so I did this all on my own, and I worked a lot along the way. But I stayed before I went. So I went for a year and a half to Europe to just travel. And then I decided to move to New Zealand and I got a visa there. So I decided to work there. And then I came back and I went back to Europe to work, back to Europe for fun and to like travel. And then on my way back, I was in New York and I did like some gelato shop, which I loved. I always have loved gelato. And I remember I was like kind of like sleeping on people's couches and beds and stuff.
Okay, so the name of the game is traveling. Basically, you want to see the world, right?
Yes. I've been to 62 countries now.
62?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy. I know. Sorry, I keep looking down to swallow because I need to swallow looking down and to the left because unfortunately swallowing still is a thing for me, but I've gotten better with it. And so still when I eat and stuff, I have to like eat my food doing that. And I always say sorry beforehand to people and they're always like, it's fine, you'll be fine.
You should never. Don't apologize for that. Not a problem at all.
Well, I apologize also because it takes loads of time. So
we got loads of time. We're just chilling here on Nick's Vancast.
Cool.
What then brought you back out to Bali? And how long were you there before everything kind of took place?
So I went there because it was cheap to be there next. And we decided that Bali was a good destination also because they had a lot of vegetarian type food, which is funny because I wasn't vegetarian before, which I totally destroyed when I came home because when in California, I went to In-N-Out Burger.
You have to.
So I felt like I really had to. So I wasn't vegetarian for that point. And then in Bali, I was again. So pescatarian, I say, because I do eat fish and stuff. Yeah, so that was part of the reason. But also, like, me and my friend who went there, my business partner, we both liked it there. So it was perfect.
Yeah, so how long were you there? And then, I mean, I'll let you kind of say what happened. I know you already kind of prefaced it, but I know that where I work, Santa Clara Valley Medical Center, where we met, I remember reading the news one day and hearing about you. I was reading a story about you and had talked about someone from Santa Clara County who had been in this scooter accident. It turns out I found out that we had a mutual friend that you had gone to high school with, right? And then she and I ran cross country together in college. So it was really crazy to hear your story from the other side of the world and then have you, right from our backyard here.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until near the end of your time at the hospital that I even knew that you were, the next building over from me.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, can you tell us a little bit about what happened or, from what people have told you about kind of what happened or what you know of it?
So, because this is the part I don't really remember, but apparently I got into my scooter accident. I don't remember it at all, but then I was in a coma the whole 2 weeks I was in the hospital there. So I was in the hospital there for 2 weeks. And then my family was able to gather up enough money from people donating money on my GoFundMe, and which my mom and sister didn't want to do because they were kind of private. And then they're like, no, we need to make sure she gets home. So they were trying to raise money, and they said within 3 days I had enough, which is crazy because it's like $20-something thousand to fly me home. Yeah.
So you're in a scooter accident, and how did you end up at the hospital then? How did you get to the hospital? Do you know?
So somebody saw that I was on the side of the road, and he called an ambulance to get me. Yeah, I know, crazy.
So they don't even know, kind of what happened then?
Or how long I was there, any of that.
Wow.
I know, insane.
So then you're in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I read in the article that you had tons of people supporting because apparently it's very expensive to get back to the United States.
Yeah.
Why is that? Do you know?
Because you had to do a medical evacuation flight, so it costs a lot. There were cheaper options, but this one was the best option, so they went with the best option.
It's not just a regular plane ticket. It's you want to have all of the
I had to have
things.
A nurse. I had to have somebody who could, like a doctor, many things. I think for like professional people that are professional in the medical area.
Right. How long of a trip would that be?
Well, they had to do, I think, like 3 or 4 stops.
Okay. Wow.
To refuel. Yeah, because it was a small flight, which is too bad I don't remember it, and I was unconscious at that point because obviously I love traveling, so I love airplanes as well. And that would have been my first time in that size of a flight, so it would have been cool, but...
Right. So this is like, obviously, it's, a pretty dire situation, and fortunately we're able to get you back to the United States, right?
Yeah.
And where do you go first when you touch down here? And kind of what, like, condition are you in at this time?
So I was able to fly at least. I still wasn't awake. I was able to go to Stanford, and they had me in the ICU for a long time. So, I mean, that's super... And they basically saved my life in a way. So I owe them everything in that way.
And I'm sorry, you're still, like, in a coma at this point as well?
Yeah, for the first 3 weeks or for a month. I don't know. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do they do for you there? Do they, like, stabilize you? Like, what kind of care do they do for someone who's experiencing what you experienced?
Well, first the face surgery, which I know, like, wasn't that big of a deal for everyone else, and it was a dangerously kind of dangerous surgery for me to get. But my family knew that I would prefer to not be all jumbled up in the face. So, and I guess it's good that I was unconscious then because I don't remember how bad I hurt when it was getting better. So that's what I take as positive. So, and then they did, so I have a trach scar, as you can see. I actually got throat surgery, which is why I need to do this, to do any swallow thing, to swallow anything. And so, speaking of which, so turning to the left, head down a bit, that kind of stuff. And then so that was a big surgery, and I guess the trach that they put in before, which is the thing they put in your airway to help you breathe, was too big in Bali. And so then they did it here, and they made it smaller, and apparently it was big enough for, like, it was a kid size, apparently. Sounds like me, because I'm tiny. But, yeah, so it was interesting. But that surgery, throat surgery, was super, super dangerous, and one of the best surgeons, apparently one of the best surgeons in the world, I think he's amazing because he helped me, and everyone does, luckily, but... So it's not just me, but he is amazing. So luckily he was able to save my throat. So what would have happened if they didn't, like, change it? My air breathing would be where I swallow, and where I swallow would also be like me breathing, so that it made a hole in my thing, and so they had to fix it and put it back together. So crazy.
That's really crazy. Okay, so how long were you at Stanford until, I know you mentioned saying, I'm back to your sister. How long was it until then you were able to come out of your coma?
So I guess for me, like, when I started gaining more of a understanding of what was happening, that was in my way out of my coma. But I know that for others, it's not. It's just like when you're awake. But it did take probably 2 or 3 weeks to get there, even at Stanford. But Valley Med was the first time I started, like, remembering stuff. So, yeah, it's interesting. But
I mean, remembering is one thing, but, like, how do you even describe, like, understanding and coming awake and then kind of understanding what's going on? Because, I mean, the last thing you know, you were in Bali and now you're in Stanford, and it's like, what is that even like?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I don't remember, so I have no idea. But my mom said I was swearing a lot, which is kind of funny because I know I said it once on here, but normally I say shiitake mushrooms or something like that. Isn't like, it's my way of swearing but not swearing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was interesting to hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll get to this, but I know I met your mom and sister. They're lovely people. They're so great. Yeah. And so they're by your side there at Stanford, right? And so what was that like for them? Like, do you talk about kind of, what that was like for them and the kind of support that they were wanting to give you so you could get back up?
They were very nervous, obviously, but I guess because I kept making some progress at Stanford and then even more at Valley Med, they were kind of happy for me in a way, but they also knew that certain things that would have to happen I wouldn't be okay with, which is I really appreciate about them. They're like, you wouldn't have liked that. I'm like, no, I wouldn't have. So that's good you knew that. And they're like, yeah, then we wouldn't have fought as hard for you. And so getting to where you are right now is honestly, it helped that we fought as hard as we did. I'm like, that's good.
So you are at Stanford for how long did you say you were there for?
I was there for 2.5 months. 2.5 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then you all decide that you want to get into a rehab, an inpatient rehab program.
Yeah.
And were there a few different options and then you ended up deciding where you wanted to go?
So there was from my mom and sister because it was at a time I don't remember and I was having more issues. So they were very big about me. They actually really wanted me to go to Valley Med and they really, really, really wanted it. So, and then you had to have your hole closed to go there. You can have a trach, but you can't have a hole in your airway to mess up anything. So that was a very important surgery to get. So my mom and sister were super big about me getting it, which is great. But yeah, so very nice of them. And when I went to Valley Med, I was in, I forget what it's called. Do you remember what it's called? Road to Recovery. I was in Road to Recovery originally, which is more long-term stuff like recovery. And I guess about a week and a half or 2 weeks into being at Valley Med, one of the people were basically where she's at right now is where people go home at Road to Recovery. So yeah, and then they wanted to get me into acute rehab, which is better than Road to Recovery. And my mom was against it because she was going for Road to Recovery and she didn't know the difference. And so she was all for Road to Recovery. She's like, nope, Road to Recovery needs to happen. But she didn't realize acute care was better. So then when she found out what acute care was different wise to Road to Recovery, then she just was like, okay, sounds good.
So to back up just a little bit about Santa Clara Valley Medical Center, where I work and where we met, it's so awesome that you came there because the Rehabilitation Center at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center is world renowned.
I know.
So it's really great that you got to go there and receive your care. Obviously, I think you could say they helped you a lot.
They definitely did. In my memory, from what I remember, they did it as well. From what I don't remember, I believe all three helped in ways that all three needed to.
Yeah. I see a lot of people come through rehab working there, and nice. I don't have often direct patient care. I'm on the marketing side where I produce videos, as you know, but it's always amazing, the spirit in which people have this dedication to wanting to recover in anything they experience. Just to go back really quick, primarily what you were experiencing was a traumatic brain injury, right?
Yes.
That was the biggest thing, was brain injury. What's the difference between the Road to Recovery and the things you do there and the acute rehabilitation that you ended up doing later?
So in terms of what you do, it's the same, but Road to Recovery is not based on you need to keep getting better every week to continue. Road to Recovery is you originally, and you'll get no matter what a certain amount of time, so you don't need to continue getting better. So because they saw me always getting better, they were like, acute rehab is better for her. So being there in general, getting the rehab is amazing. So no matter which one I had to be in, it's cool that I got to be there in general.
Yeah. And like I said, I didn't know basically the whole time you were there that you were there.
Yeah.
But I got the really cool opportunity to meet you. And I think it was your last week that you were there.
Probably.
They were going to do a news story on your recovery. And it was really cool. I think you wanted to thank everybody that had helped you at Valley Medical Center. And it was just great. So getting to go up and meet you and then filming some of the rehab activities that you did. Do you remember any of the things that you did there that helped you recover? Because there's a lot of things, right? Traumatic brain injury, but that affected a lot of things, like you said, walking and, a lot of different things. So what were some of the things that you had to overcome and the things that you did to get there?
I guess a big thing is swallowing. I still have to work on walking, but swallowing was a really big thing for me. So doing that was super important, which you would think speech therapy sometimes is not very important, but I think it's super important. So being able to swallow, being able to talk, all that kind of stuff is good. And this sounds silly because I know how to talk luckily, and some people don't really, but I still am trying to get better at reading because that was the one thing I wouldn't know how to do. I would see a word and it would just look like letters.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that too because I remember that you were writing one day.
Yeah.
So you could write, but you couldn't read.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Okay. I remember another activity that you were doing. And was this along the lines, well, first of all, let me say that I don't have a clinical background.
Yeah.
I work at a hospital, but I don't have a clinical background. I didn't know speech pathology and speech therapists help to swallow as well.
Yeah.
I thought it was all talking and reading.
It's like all right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're getting a medical lesson on the Vancast here.
Even for me, I have to get a medical lesson for things too all the time.
But one of the activities too was, I remember there were Post-it notes on the wall.
Yes.
Do you remember this? And there were numbered Post-it notes like 1 through 16, and you had to get Post-it notes off the wall in order of the numbers.
Yeah.
Does that also relate to also reading, like numbers and words, kind of both difficult in the same regard?
I was doing that because I was doing eye stuff, because my eyes, that's why I'm wearing these glasses, because they're good for people with double vision, which I don't remember having, but my mom thinks my eyes just got used to it, so I see up and down, left and right incorrectly, so I'll see this, and so, so I actually go to eye therapy and see an eye doctor now who works specifically with people with brain injuries as well, and that's not all he works with, but that's someone specific he works with because he had a brain injury before, which is interesting. But yeah, so that's why I was doing the number thing you're talking about, because he wanted me to scan.
Right.
And because only like one eye could see a certain side.
Okay.
Then he was hoping that would help my vision.
Right.
So.
Is that tough to do something like that may have been like a easier thing, and now it's like something that you have to work at a little bit more?
I wouldn't say necessarily. I see it, I wouldn't say I get frustrated easily because I can't do something as well as I used to. It's just more like, okay, well, if you keep practicing, you're going to get better. So I tell myself that, and then usually I do, so.
That's a great attitude to have.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people who experience injuries of any kind.
Yeah.
And if they could, maybe they injured their knee and they used to be able to dunk a basketball, and that may be frustrating to them.
Yeah.
And they may stop trying to dunk that basketball, but it's cool that you look at it as an opportunity to get better.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. I don't think I mentioned this, and something I was going to tell you is that I also suffered a traumatic brain injury about 8 years ago.
Wow.
But, nothing as serious as yours. But so I'm kind of like aware of, how brains are amazing. They do really interesting things. It takes a long time to heal. And sometimes I remember doctors saying you could recover from this symptom 5 to 7 years later, That's just so amazing. What happened was I was in Santa Cruz, actually, by the river, and I jumped into the river. And I hit the back of my head on a rock. So I had a brain bleed, but luckily I was able to recover from that. But it was a few years that things felt different for me.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know maybe from talking to me, but everything just felt like slightly different or removed. Yeah. But it was really encouraging that they said, I think one day you'll just realize like, oh, the certain symptom is gone, right? What are some of the encouraging things that you've heard that have helped you to stay focused on wanting to continue on your journey of rehabilitation?
Well, I think that it's definitely good that I'm just naturally positive. So I'm just positive about things. So one person yesterday when I was on this group call with younger people with brain injuries said that he always feels bad when he like meets older people and he's doing better than them. And I said, no, don't look at it like that. It's just awesome that you're doing good in general. Like, you don't have to compare yourself and say, oh, I'm doing too good for them. Like, you should be proud of yourself. Like, you should be like, oh, I'm doing awesome. It's good. So, and he was like, oh, that's a good idea. I'm like, no, it's very helpful. I think it's a good way to be. So it was nice to be able to do that.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you get to kind of encourage other people through this group. What were some of the things that you liked to do before your injury that you would say Santa Clara Valley Medical Center helped you to be able to do again?
Well, the two things that I really like, I couldn't do there. But I don't think they would have been like, oh, no, you can't do it because of this reason. It was not possible there, traveling and rock climbing.
Okay.
So those two things are not a Valley Med at all. So, yeah. And in a way, I like say positive stuff. So I'm always like, well, I traveled to Valley Med, so I still got that in. So
there you go.
I'm still able to like pick up things in that way. So.
Or was there anything that you really needed to be able to do that they helped you get back on track with in particular? Okay.
Really, really helped me. Super helped me with because I was in a wheelchair for a long time. And then I was practicing stuff on my walker. And eventually I left with the walker and had a transport chair. And now we're at a point where we have the walker when there's big crowds because it tells people I have something that you need to be careful of because it's kind of a silent thing that any brain thing, it's silent. People don't just know that there's something that you have to deal with. Like, I didn't even know you had one before.
Right.
So it's very hidden in a way.
Right. Was there anything at the rehab center at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center that you learned to like, an activity that you kind of picked up there that they taught you to love?
Yes. So they got me into biking. What is it called?
Was it the bike that you rode there? There was like a 3-wheel bike, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is that called? A trike?
Oh, yeah, like a tricycle. Yeah.
And
those are cool.
Yeah, it's funny because I was never a big biker, so I didn't think that would even be an option or a good idea. But this one, it was cool because it would balance for you. And if you talk to other people who bike, they'd be like, oh, it's slow. But I thought it was super fast. And so I had this huge smile on my face when Jennifer was there and recording. And yeah, so I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I have some great drone shots of you on that bike too.
Nice. Good to know.
Also, speaking of bike, there was someone else that I filmed at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center. This isn't private because you keep the patient information private, but someone who shared their story very publicly is someone else that that I saw you with not that long ago was Andrew.
Andrew, yeah.
He came through our rehab center as well after a bike injury, but he also loved that bike. How did you get connected with him? That's so cool.
So we both did Rehab Without Walls, and maybe it was that, so his speech therapist, because he had speech issues, and so and it's funny because he doesn't talk so much, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I talk too much, I'm so sorry if I bored you, and he was like, no, it's okay, I like it, like, it's good that you talk, so I don't have to, and I was like, okay, if you say it that way. So, yeah, and he liked biking a lot, and so he said it's just slow for him. That's what I was talking about.
Oh, he likes to go fast.
Yeah, because he was going to be a professional racer, basically.
Wow.
So.
And he's local to the area too, I think, right?
So we see each other quite a bit now.
What does that mean to you to have someone like that local who, you know, really understands what you're going through, and you kind of get to like go through that journey together?
Well, it's actually really good because he never saw this scar, not in the beginning, because I had a bandage over it. And then I said, look at this. Or he was complaining about this scar. And I was like, oh, it's not bad at all. Like, it's fine. And he's like, it's my second belly button, which is funny because at the time, like, I just thought that's your way of saying it. But I realized how it really kind of is in a way, because that's where you're fed, and that's where you're fed when you're in your mommy's tummy. So it's basically a second belly button, which I am going to say to him eventually. But he, so he'd be like, yeah, look at this horrible second belly button I have. And I'd be like, oh, that's nothing. It's no big deal. And then I'd be like, it's not like this Drake scar. And she was like, it's huge. She's like, oh, that's pretty big. And I was like, yeah, it's awful. And then, he'd be like, why do you have that? And I'd be like, because I had a trach. And he's like, oh, I'm glad I never had one. And his mom's like, yeah, you've had one. You just don't remember, but you had one. And I was like, I think I have this extra scar because I had surgery. And he has like a tiny one. And he's like, oh, that's what this is from? Oh, and I was like, yep. So
that's amazing. Well, I'm so glad that you have him. That's really cool. He's such a nice guy too. Yeah. That's very funny.
Yeah.
One of the things that you said when you were at your press conference on the day of discharge is that you had the desire to be like a motivational speaker, like a public speaker.
Yeah. So
you're doing it right now.
I guess in a way, but I have thought more about it, and you'd have to see like where it would be possible to do in general. And then I've thought, well, obviously healthcare is super important to me now. And I'm at the age where I have to get my own. My mom can't have me on hers. So then I would like to find somewhere that could hire me that could give me insurance. And I would like to still help people as well. So I haven't decided if that was going to be a very good idea or not.
Okay.
But that would still be an option.
Yeah. I think you're inspiring me right now and all the people who are listening.
Without even meaning to. That's very nice.
Is there anything else that you aspire to do going forward?
Well, I would like to go back to being able to travel, but I don't want to do it the way I used to because I would do it for super cheap and stay in hostels. And so no, not anymore. So I would still like to be able to travel. And I have thought about different companies that I could work for that would help people with traumatic brain injuries or things that I've been helped with. So that is something I've been thinking about.
Well, I know whatever it is that you're doing, it's going to be awesome and
Thank
very
you.
Inspiring. Can we give your Instagram? Can we share that? People want to see what you're up to.
No, of course. Yeah, I obviously all the time tell people what I'm up to in a way.
Yeah.
I try to keep people updated because I realized a lot of people I know with brain injuries don't really post about brain injuries that much. A couple people do, but not that many. So I'm just trying to make it more well known to people. So yes, you're more than welcome. And I was going to change it to like something more related to a brain injury, but I haven't found anything worth it enough. And this would have made sense if I was, well, I guess it makes sense because it involves like other people, but it's not about traveling anymore. So I don't know how it would, I guess it made sense before because I would always do just crazy things. But I guess it still makes sense the first part because of what I've been through. But I'm on Fearless Travelers.
Right now, it's Fearless Travelers. Everybody follow Kaitlyn on Instagram, Fearless Travelers. You are very fearless. And you're a traveler. So before you go, do you want to play a game?
Sure.
I have burning questions. Before we play this game, one of the cool things that I was going to tell you is that, again, watching like your journey and kind of following it along and seeing your improvements was so cool. Even from December to today, 7 months later, like you've made so many improvements, like the way you walk and like your voice is stronger, Like, it's so incredible. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Huge congratulations on that.
Thank you.
You ready for some burning questions?
Oh, yeah. Bring it on.
I'll mix them up. I'll read you a question. How's that?
Okay.
You nervous?
Oh, no. I'm an open book, so it's fine.
Do you, Kaitlyn, consider yourself to be an introvert or an extrovert?
Oh, definitely an extrovert.
You like to be around people?
Oh, I love being around people. I love people being around me. Yeah, so definitely an extrovert.
Okay. Ready for another?
Yep.
How do you wish to be remembered? What's a legacy that you would like to leave behind?
That's a good question. I just would like people to remember me as nice, because that's what I think is important for everyone, is to just be nice, no matter what has happened. If you've gone through a TBI, a TBI, by the way, is traumatic brain injury, which you know since you had one.
Yeah, we should have done that earlier. My bad.
No, it's okay. So no matter what you've been through, it's just good to be nice to humans.
I love that.
And even non-humans, doggies.
We have one more question, but before that, is there anything that you would want people to know, like any advice that you've kind of learned as you've gone through such a crazy experience? What's something that, someone has told you, or something that you would pass along to others who are going through their own challenge in life?
Just remember, there's people who support you and who are there for you. And if they're not next to you or right there with you, even if they're far away, I'm right there with you.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. Last burning question.
Okay.
Who is your hero?
My hero. That's a good question. To be honest, my family is my hero, because they've always supported what I was going through, no matter what, and so they're my biggest hero. They're just awesome.
That's an amazing answer. Your family is very awesome. You're great as well. And
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait to see all of the things that you do. Your recovery has come so far, and I know you're going to continue to do that. Yeah, it's just been amazing. I'm so glad our paths crossed. It's been great. Yeah.
Me too.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you again.
Like I'm at the tippy top of my game, looking down at the raft. Confidence. Come on.